Hello, welcome to the Morning Serve, brought to you by 9 Now, every court live and free on 9 Now. I'm Nick McArdle. John Millman joining us today on the Morning Serve. Johnny, good to see you. Heading into the second week, now it just starts to get that little more serious. That's what it feels like. Is it like that for the players?
Yeah, and the players definitely realise when they're in that second week, the locker room starts to slowly empty out. All of a sudden, you're not waiting to see the physio. All the services are there. And the tension's rising. There's no doubt about that. We're at the business end of the tournament now.
And every match is just that little bit more difficult, isn't it? Because you know you've got a quality player across the net.
Not just quality players, but players who have played themselves into some really good form. And that's what we're seeing here now, aren't we?
All right, let's have a look at what is coming your way on today's edition of the Morning Serve. To begin, we're going to preview Alex De Minaur's next match. It's against Alex Michelsen, not an easy one against the American youngster. And that's going to lead us into a chat about American tennis and the resurgence, particularly of the men in American tennis. Married bliss, the Monfils Svitolina household. They are having a very nice Australian Open indeed. And then looking ahead to Sinner and Rune. That is a big fourth round match. Can't wait to talk about that one. All right, let's chat about Alex De Minaur and that third round match against Francisco Cerundolo. And Alex did look a little bit shaky early on.
Yeah, and he'd been coming out the block so well prior to this matchup against Francisco Cerundolo. I do think he was a little bit wary. I know he wanted to play him during the day, wanted to rush Cerundolo's forehand a little bit, and normally that backhand of Cerundolo breaks down, but it was extremely solid, and all of a sudden Alex saw him making uncharacteristic unforced errors. He fell down that first set, and there was a really key moment in the second set. Think about 30-all, 5-all, Alex serving. This was to give Cerundolo a break point, and Alex played one of the most ridiculous shots I've seen in tennis, a reflex volley off the net cord.
Yep.
And after that, he actually tried to turn the tables a little bit. He managed to get himself back in the hunt, and then carried on that momentum. I think the fitness really paved way late in that match.
You can see how much work he's done. At one point, he went over to the pod, the coaching pod, and said, "But, you know, I need a bit more from you. Talk to me a bit more." Can you explain the thought process there?
Yeah, I think you just need to change up. When all things are rolling, you don't really need to talk to your team a whole lot, but obviously he needed a change. He needed the calming influence of the pod. And I think this has been a great addition. Having the pod so close, you can have those conversations. Sometimes on Rod Laver Arena, in years gone by, you can't actually hear your player's box talking to you. So I think he was trying to use that. I think it's really smart for him to try to use what's available to him. He had the conversation, got that calming influence from Adolfo Gutierrez, who's always provided, you know, that kind of sound voice for him. And as a team, they managed to get through it together.
A lot of chat about the pods and whether they're working, and some love them. I think some, the jury's out a little bit. Can you see a day where we get to maybe like a Davis Cup situation where it's actually the coach sitting at the change of ends and you can sit and have a chat, and United Cup did it as well? Will we get there?
I'm hesitant for that type of change. I'd love to see tennis still have its individual element a little bit, but I do like the pods. I think tennis is an entertainment business. I think it adds another little bit of a layer for the person back home to appreciate. I'd like to hear more of the conversations.
Yeah.
Seeing as we're having them now, I'd like to have them mic'd up and we kind of can engage with and be really feel as if you're in the pod listening to the advice being given.
Well, that would actually take you inside, probably closer than we'd ever seen before. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, even better than Davis Cup, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think what's also playing out that's another little dynamic is when Alex needed that pod, if he was at the other end of the court, he's not necessarily getting that. So he timed when he needed to have that conversation and timed it to perfection.
Okay, so Alex taking on another Alex in Alex Michelsen, this, I was going to say kid, he's not very old, from the US, but part of this next wave. We're going to talk about that, all those players coming through, but how does he match up against Alex Michelsen?
I really like Alex Michelsen, the kid from California. I called his Tsitsipas match, but he's been someone that's on the rise. He beat Alex last year at Los Cabos. He lost to him at Roland Garros, but he has got some huge weapons and a huge game. And he's the player right now, early on in his career trajectory, where he's improving every single time we see him. Massive serve, so look out for that. He's got, I think, one of the better two-handed backhands going around. He can generate the pace, he can pull it down the line, but he can also absorb pace. It's a really simple shot. He does it to perfection. the forehand's the side that can break down, and I think Alex is going to direct a lot of traffic in that way.
The body profile, I remember seeing him play last year, and he had that teenage look about him. He's got a more mature body now. He's growing into it a little bit. He's a big unit.
Yeah, slowly starting to fill out. He still is a little bit of a, giraffe. Yeah, but moving really well. And he's actually deceptive how well he moves. Chased down a lot of those Stefanos Tsitsipas drop shots. Where you think you'd get him with the movement, changes direction quite well, you don't necessarily. So it's going to be a tougher match than maybe it looks on paper. He's not seeded, but if you look at the people he's beaten to get there, you can tell he's got some serious game.
That leads us perfectly to a discussion about this resurgent now of men's tennis in the US. I'll throw these names at you. Taylor Fritz, world number 4. Tiafoe, Tien, the kid, the 19-year-old. Mickelson, who we've spoken about. Tommy Paul, Ben Shelton. Like, it's a massive resurgence now. Probably the best field of American men we've seen since Andy Roddick retired. What's happened?
Yeah, rock and roll tennis right now, isn't it? And the Americans are doing it better now. So I think a few things. I do think they made a tactical change, a strategical change a while ago where they got a couple of South American coaches in. They have their base over in California and also Orlando now. So multiple areas where players can access world-class coaching. I think the American college system has gone on leaps and bounds also. And you see not just the American players, but you see some players really getting their coaching education now and their playing education through that American college system. At this Australian Open, it's been a great advertisement. And like I said, not just the Americans. You've got Nuno Borges, Mississippi State, played that great match against Carlos Alcaraz. Emma Navarro, University of Virginia, and so many more. So I think that there's multiple ways that players can train, can learn their trade of playing tennis, whether that's through the college system, whether that's through these academies, and they've got a comprehensive tournament schedule there too.
The other thing we've seen, players, young players from around the world gravitating towards that college system as well, and then turning up on tour.
Yeah.
Jacob Fernley, one of those guys.
Well, match hardened, right?
So the question is that a path that Australians, and they have in the past, but can grow on, can actually be a part of, and maybe is good for Australian tennis?
100%, and that's actually what Tennis Australia is targeting. We've got Chris Marnie based over there now, so he's been working with Maya Joint, but he also oversees a lot of the Australian college players, and they are encouraged, if they're not quite ready to jump on the tour at 18 years old, they are encouraged to do so. We haven't necessarily got the volume of tournaments that, say, the Europeans are exposed to, say the Americans are exposed to. So you've got to get matches. You've also got to be able to afford it. And the great thing about the college system is you have access to coaches, matches, and it's being paid for.
So after the likes of Andy Roddick retired, I'm thinking, Marty Fish as well, another guy. Was there a moment of crisis where the American authorities have sat down and what are we going to do? How are we going to change this? Or has it happened organically?
I think it's a combination of that and a combination of some good minds getting together and coming forth with a few strategic options to ensure that they're getting the best talent and they're harnessing that talent and making sure the pathways are clear. And that's the challenge that all the countries face, and America faces too, right? We have competition with a lot of different sports. So how do we get those best talents? And the athletes you're seeing coming through now are some of the better talent that they've got in America. You look at Coco Gauff. I mean, she is just a phenomenal athlete. You look at someone like a Frances Tiafoe, a Tommy Paul, movement, incredible well, strength on the court. And now you're starting to see it with the young ones, your Ben Sheltons. I mean, he was playing American football once upon a time. And you can see that with how lively his arm is. So they're starting to get some of the best talents and they're starting to create the proper pathways to make sure that these talents are nurtured.
It's right. You talk about those guys, and they're all pure athletes, aren't they? Absolutely. Let's have a look at what is coming your way on 9, and this is the flight plan with thanks to 9 Now. You look down here, which of these matches really has your interest, piques your interest, John?
Well, they're all exciting. We've already talked about De Minaur Mickelson. Navarro Kazatkina, we spoke about her also. I love the story of Swiatek and Lees, the lucky loser, but the one that draws my attention, how can you go past the ultimate entertainer, Gael Monfils versus Ben Shelton. We got the brash young American. Ben Shelton said, the young Americans, we're coming for you. Well, this guy will come at you firing on all cylinders. He's got a huge left-handed swinging serve. I think one of the biggest serves in the game, and he plays aggressive tennis. But he's up against Monfils, and we've seen so much of him. The ultimate entertainer. He throws a bit of everything. He beat one of my tournament favourites in Taylor Fritz.
Yep.
Throws everything at it, and it looks like he's having fun right now.
And I think it's up to about like 60 Grand Slam tournaments he's played. That win over Taylor Fritz, his best ever in terms of rankings. That's his best ever win at Grand Slam level at the age of 38. That's incredible.
And in that one, he served incredibly well. So if he can keep holding his serve, he'll create enough opportunities to get into a couple of Ben Shelton service games.
So Gael Monfils, he plays on MCA, he wins, and then Elena Svitolina, she comes on after him and she wins. I mean, what a week for the Monfils Svitolina household.
Yeah, and it looked like Svitolina was going to be in a bit of trouble because she was down early against Paolini, who obviously was so good at Grand Slam level in 2024. But she rode that momentum. Gael Monfils, we've seen him courtside. He gave her that energy. She's been playing so well off the back of having a baby with Gael Monfils. You know, their family's growing. They seem to be really enjoying their tennis, which I think is key to their success.
We were talking a little bit throughout the week, but particularly with Sam Stosur the other day about how being in that happy relationship, and it obviously presents its challenges when you're travelling, but it must be an amazing thing as well, having that support from someone, in this case, who knows exactly what you're going through.
And I think Sam Stosur is probably better placed to have that than me. But definitely, they look happy. And I think that even Gael mentioned it in his post-match press conference. Someone said, can you go all the way? He goes, I'm not thinking about going all the way. And he said, that won't bring me happiness. What brings me happiness is having a big family, living life with my loved ones. And I just thought that was such a nice answer. And it really shows the headspace he's in right now.
But that headspace too of, you know, I'm not even thinking about going all the way. No one is talking about Gael Monfils winning this tournament, and that's got to be a good thing.
It's dangerous, right? It's dangerous, and he's playing with that freedom. You got to remember, Gael Monfils, he's coming off a win in Auckland. He was the oldest player to win an ATP tournament, did that in Auckland, then comes off, and I think people were thinking, okay, great win for Gael,
Had your moment.
But surely the body breaks down now. He's gone, and he's played against some big players, Pecci, Pericard, Taylor Fritz, like we talked about, and he survived the test. Why can't he keep going? That draw's opening up too.
Now, not something you've had a lot of experience of, giving birth and returning to the tour, but how impressive is it for Elena Svitolina to be able to do that in the fashion that she has?
Can't imagine how difficult that is. I also can't imagine how difficult it is to not be spending every minute and every day with your kid.
Yeah.
Apart from the sleepless hours, I think she probably is relieved that she doesn't have to do that just currently. But yeah, I think that this has become more of an option for women players because of those ones in recent times that have paved the way. Your Kim Kleisters, your Victoria Azarenkas. They're looking at these ones and saying, it is a possibility. I can now have my child. It's not one thing or the other. I can have a child. I can return to tennis and be successful at it.
Let's talk to finish up with about Sinner and Rune. Is it fair to say that Holger Rune perhaps hasn't developed into the type of player that a lot of people thought that he would? He was being mentioned in the same breath as Sinner and Alcaraz. He's 13 in the world, so, you know, said with a caveat.
Pump the brakes.
But he's not quite where those other two are. Is that fair?
What I think, it's fair to say he's not quite where those other two are yet.
Right.
I think time will tell with Holger Rune. We know that his top-level game is good enough to match it, and you can see that with his head-to-head records with you guys like Sinner, you guys like Djokovic, who he beat in the Paris Masters. His top level is there, whether he can get that consistency week in, week out, and that's how you get your ranking up. Yes, winning a slam will help, but you have to be able to perform week in, week out at the Masters events, at the 500 events, and then at Grand Slam level. And that's where he lets himself down a little bit. That high end's there, that consistency, not quite. I also think that was a really encouraging win against Kecmanovic because he managed to do so in 5 sets. And in previous years, I have questioned whether he can go the distance. Sometimes his body gives out.
Well, he did look gone in that match and fought his way back to win. I think he was asked afterwards by the on-court interviewer, can you believe you're actually standing here because you must have thought you were gone? And he was shaking his head as well.
He smacked a few of the pickle juices too.
Yeah. So, given that he does have that, if he's playing at his absolute best, he can beat anyone. Does that just sit in the back of Jannik Sinner's mind, knowing that that is a possibility?
100%, and Jannik will be taking this extremely seriously, as will his team. I think it's good that he's played him before. I thought that Jannik looked, a little bit confused when he played Tristan Schoolcade.
Yep.
He hadn't seen Tristan's game before. Tristan came out of the blocks, maybe throwing up a bit of unexpected tennis to him. I think it helps that he's played Holger Rune before. He'll be confident going into this one, just knowing what to expect.
All right, so if you say that about Sinner and how he positions himself in this match, what does Holger need to do to win?
Holger's confident. I mean, Holger, regardless of form, current form from 2024, where it was a slight down year by his own standards, he's a really confident kid, and you can see that in the locker rooms. You can see that in the gym. He walks around with his swagger. So I think he'll believe. I think his biggest chance to win depends on how he's recovered. Because as we've touched on, that was a really physical match. He said it himself. To beat Jannik Sinner, you have to be firing on all cylinders. So it'll come down to what he does today. How much sleep can he get? How can he recharge the batteries? I'm sure he's spending a hell of a lot of time in the ice bath with the Normatex, the compression blankets, everything. He'll be trying to be coming out of there feeling in tip-top shape.
So he can beat Jannik Sinner. Will he beat Jannik Sinner?
I don't think so. No, I think Jannik Sinner is definitely the favourite. There's a reason why this guy is the #1 in the world. Consistently, he's the best player. He's the best player on hard court. Bookended 2024 with wins at the Australian Open and the US Open. Jannik Sinner gets the chocolates.
All right, well, that gets us started on a massive second week. Thanks, Johnny.
Can't wait for the second week.
Wide World of Sports on YouTube is your home of the tennis this summer.
With highlights of the best matches of the summer of tennis, the on-court interviews and every day with the morning serve, you'll be ahead of the game.
So click that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing this summer.